All right, Larry Krueger here at Levi's Stadium on a Friday for the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er update on everything that happened down here in Santa Clara on this Friday. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to go find. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California on the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. All right, Niners getting ready to board the bird and go to Miami and take on the Dolphins. A couple of football teams that are playing out the string. A couple of teams that were thought to maybe be Super Bowl contenders whose seasons kind of went up in smoke. Both teams roll into the game with 6 wins and 8 losses, and whoever wins this game almost assuredly will pick behind the team that loses this game. So you might be more advantageous to lose the game than to win the game, but that's not how the Niners are thinking about it. They want to go there. They want to win. They're a proud franchise. They want to finish this season on an uptick, no matter how much adversity there's been this year. They'll never think about draft position here over culture and over winning and over the present. So you'll never hear them ever say that they would tank or in any kind of thing think about the future. They're just not wired that way. The players aren't, the coaches aren't, Kyle's not, John's not. It's just not the way it's done. So when you hear people talk about tanking with the Niners, just know that they really don't know what they're talking about, because the Niners would not tank for draft position no matter what, or at least not. I shouldn't say no matter what. There might be a unique player in some year where they would consider doing it, but then that's a pretty much of a long shot that the Niners would ever tank games, whether they're playoff bound or not. It doesn't matter to them. They're going to try to win every game. We talked to Kyle today. He was asked about, there's an awful lot of people who say that Kyle needs to stay ahead of the curve and reinvent himself. And there's 18 teams around the league that run some variation of his system, and the league's caught up with him, and he needs to, catch back up, and, that whole discussion. He was asked about that today. So let's hear Kyle Shanahan today at his press conference talking about possibly the need to reinvent himself as an offensive play caller and as a football coach.
If you're on the radio, you probably don't listen to sports talk radio, but a popular talking point is that you need to reinvent yourself. Your offense is all over the league and everyone's caught up to it, and now you need to evolve or whatever. I assume some of that already happens every year. I mean, do you agree with part of that, or is that just, as a coach, you're always doing that?
That's what you try to do every single week. That's what you try to always do. But you don't, it's kind of like the other question when talking about schemes. You don't just say, hey, today I'm going to try to run the wishbone offense and stuff. It's what are the players that you have, what do you believe in, and what gives those guys the best chance to succeed. For a little bit here, we almost went with the running quarterback, possibly with Trey. You saw a different offense when he got out there. You see different things. You got to adjust your players. I know what I want to do. I think we got the players here to do that stuff. But reinventing yourself, as you ask, that's I did that having a mustache this offseason for a little bit. That's how I would look at that. And I'm totally joking. But it's when it comes to football's that's why I think coaches get a little too much credit too, when a really good scheme is putting the players that you have in the best chance they have to max out and do their best. And that's what we're going to always try to do. And the scheme will change with that.
All right, a little Kyle Shanahan there talking about, the whole idea of reinventing yourself. Now, as far as this game's concerned, there will not be an Isaac Orendo. He's out. So Patrick Taylor is going to draw the start. We had a chance to talk to Taylor, who was signed on here as a special teamer, and a guy who was coming out of a similar system. They liked him. They thought he was physical, thought he could catch the ball, had some nice traits, liked what he brought to the table, and wanted to take a look at him as a special teamer. And then because of injuries to Christian McCaffrey, J.P. Mason, Elijah Mitchell, Isaac Orendo, he's now starting against the Miami Dolphins. How much will we see of him? How much will we see of Debo as opposed to maybe Keyshawn Vaughn or Izzy Abanikanda? I'm not really sure. But Taylor's an interesting back. He runs a little upright, so he takes an inordinate number of hits. He's definitely a guy that can catch the ball to the backfield. He's got good hands. He runs with good power. For a tall back, I think he runs with pretty good body lean. I talked to him about a month ago about his challenges as a taller back. And he said, hey, I always have to focus on body lean. If you're like this, you're going to get smoked. If you're like this, you're going to take fewer hits. If you can run like this, you're going to take fewer hits. If you can run like this, you're going to take fewer hits. The key is exposing as little as of the body to hits as possible. If you run upright, you take lots of hits and you have a short career. So the key is to be this kind of a back, not this kind of a back. And I think that's kind of a difficult thing for a lot of taller backs. But Taylor, I thought, looked good in the preseason in that Raider game. And at times, when they've thrown him in there, he's looked good. He's looked really good. So, the one thing the 49ers seem like they always have a lot of are running backs. I think they can run the ball in this game, whether it's Keyshawn Vaughn, whether it's Izzy Abanikanda, or whether it's Patrick Taylor Jr. I think the Niners are going to have success running the ball in this game. Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, Dre Greenlaw, Robert Beal, all in the injury report. Beal, I guess, sprained his ankle at practice. Greenlaw, I believe, is questionable. Williams is out, and Bosa is out for this game. One of the big stories down here with the holidays coming up is Brock Purdy gave all of his offensive linemen Toyotas. I asked Kyle Shanahan about it. So what do you think of Brock giving his linemen Toyotas, Sequoias, and Tundras? And he's like, well, he sounds like a really good guy, and he probably got a really good deal, which is probably true. But Brock, of course, is a spokesman for Toyota. He's making lots of money from Toyota. And somehow he got Toyota to kick down 10 cars, 5 Sequoias and 5 Toyota Tundra trucks for his linemen. And, that probably has to be the greatest gift of all time. I've heard Rolexes, I've heard watches, I've heard, Patrick Mahomes gave his offensive linemen golf carts last year, ATVs, golf clubs, all kinds of different things, television sets, you name it. But a car, a truck, we're talking about a $60,000 vehicle. The Sequoias go for 60. The Tundras go for 40. It's funny. I was mentioning this to Dieter the other day, and Dieter's like, look at the tax bill he just stuck his lineman with. I'm like, Dieter, you're so negative. That's such a negative take. But Brock gave his linemen Toyota Sequoias and Tundras, so he probably got a good deal, yes. But and Demo Lenore, by the way, gifted his defensive backfield room. Everybody got Gucci travel bags. So there you go. A couple notes on this game. Miami's offense averages 101.4 rushing yards per game, 34.4 yards less than what they averaged last year when they ranked 6th in the league in rushing. Miami ran the ball 26.8% of the times per game last year. This year they're running the ball a little bit less, 26.3 times per game. Their offensive line run block grade is 25th in the NFL, so they're not a great run blocking line. They lost Austin Jackson, their right tackle, to a knee injury in November. Kendall Lamb has stepped in, and he's not quite the same as a run blocker. So that will be interesting. Can the Niners stop the Dolphin run game with Devin Achane, who's got huge speed? And then the Niner run defense is ranked 18th. Last Thursday, the Rams, with the 22nd ranked run offense, ran for 142 yards on 38 attempts. So the Niners have to be able to stop the run in this game if they want to win. They've allowed 100 rushing yards in 4 of the last 6 games. This is not trending well for the 49ers, but that's going to be a big one because Achane is a big-time back with a lot of speed. And he's looking for a bust-out performance, and he can go for 2 bills on you in a heartbeat. Super fast running back, so it's going to be a challenge for the Niners. The Niners' offensive line is going to be challenged, but Miami's pass rush pressure of 21.6% of their, or I should say, Miami's pass rush generates pressure on 21.6% of the dropbacks. That's 23rd in the NFL. Jalen Phillips is out. Bradley Chubb's out. Chubb led Miami last year with 11 sacks. Miami last year was 3rd in pressure rate, 27.7%. They were 3rd in sacks with 56. Without Chubb for a big portion of this year, Miami's got 28 sacks through 14 games. We may see Chubb return in this game. So, they've got some young rushers, Chop Robinson, Mo Kamara, but if Bradley Chubb comes back, he could give them a lot of help on that pass rush. So the Niners offensive line, Jalen Moore at left tackle, Colton McKivitz at right tackle, could have their hands full if Bradley Chubb is ready to roll. He's a tremendous player, and they're night and day difference with and without him. Chop Robinson is fast off the snap. He's got 5 sacks. The defensive tackles, Calais Campbell is the veteran. Zach Sealer has had a really good year as well. So the Niners offensive line is going to be tested for sure. This is the 49ers' 4th trip to Miami since 1995. The last time the Niners won in Miami was 1995. I remember that game very vividly. That was Elvis Grbac starting 1 week after he had upset the Cowboys in Dallas on Monday Night Football against Dan Marino and the Dolphins. And Grbac on that night in Miami threw for 382 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the 49ers got a huge performance out of Bryant Young, and they beat up the Dolphins that night in Miami, right in this time of the year, right around the holidays. Might have been actually a little bit earlier. It was right around Thanksgiving that game happened. John Lynch stopped by this morning on KMBR and talked about a number of different things. They laughed about how Brock gave his linemen Toyotas. And they asked John, hey, what are you guys playing for? And he's like, man, you're playing for the respect of your peers. And as a personnel evaluator, he's like, this is the time of year you find out about the character of guys in losing situations. Anybody can be great when they're on a winning team, when they're going to the Super Bowl. It's like, how do you handle losing? John also talked about, the whole thing with Devondre Campbell, saying that it was a quick conversation. He said his energy wasn't right before the game. He was, refusing to go into the game with with the Niners had linebackers who were down. He's like, it was a playoff game for us. It was becoming a distraction. He's like, you can't stand for that. So I just went down there and had a conversation with him. It's like, it's not who we are. It's not who we will ever be. And he basically just said, hey, look, you know what? We have a culture here. And when you don't fit our culture, you stand out like a sore thumb. And Campbell stood out like a sore thumb. My only question would be, why didn't they get him out of there about a month earlier? Probably the most significant news of the day in Ninerland is that John Lynch told Murph and Rod this morning on the KMBR Morning Show that they kind of inquired about Dre Greenlaw, who's a free agent at the end of the year. And, would you get Dre signed? Can you get Dre signed? And he's like, we love Dre. We're interested in keeping him here for the long term. He's a special player. So 49er fans who might be a little concerned, is Dre Greenlaw coming back? Is he going to leave in free agency? It sounds like if it's up to Lynch, he's coming back. And as far as a snap count for the Miami game, there will be some plan, John said, but they didn't divulge what exactly it was. And then, John also talked a little bit about the college football playoffs and how, it used to be a big deal, like when they would go through prospects and be like, yeah, this guy transferred. And immediately it would be like a big stop down. Everybody wanted to know, well, why did he transfer? What happened? What's the backstory? Why is this player transferring? Now, John said that 26% of all college football players at one point or another are in the transfer portal. And it just makes the personnel evaluation part of it, I'm sure, all the more complicated. But, I thought that was interesting. That number stood out. 26% of all college football players at some point are in the transfer portal. That's how much times have changed in college football. All right, that does it for our update here in Ninerland. The big news of the day, of course, Niners getting ready to go to Miami. But the big news, I would say, is that Dre Greenlaw, according to John Lynch, they want him here. They want him here. They're going to get him signed. He seems very optimistic about that, and that's probably the best news of the day. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corners, Sports Cards, and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.